All right, and last but not least, let's look here at tomorrow, or if you're looking at this through Tuesday morning, then today. By all means, either way, if you look at this tonight or if you look at this Tuesday morning, it's fine, because if you're looking at this Tuesday morning, then as soon as this PowerPoint is done, then pause it, go do what I'm asking you to do. Then, once you have that done, hop back to Tuesday's events where we talk about these topics in details and discuss them, etc. So, looking here towards tomorrow or Tuesday, the goal here is to talk about these debate topics, to get you started in your research process, as well as look at a couple of aspects of these debates and have you really work on fine-tuning specific things. And what I'm going to have you do is please create a Google Doc and share it with me. That way I can, in real time, edit and make comments and help you out throughout the week. Because tomorrow I should, here's hoping, be done by 11:30 when it comes to my meetings. So realistically, probably noon is when I'm going to be 100% available in case you need anything. And with registration and everything, it's kind of hard to find a location to meet. So if it was something that you needed to talk, I know they're doing registration at Capital City High School. I know I'm going to be there probably in the afternoon. So that would probably be best. If for any reason you needed to get a hold of me, that's where I'll be. So looking here, we're going to go over a couple of things. Mr. Proctor has some pet peeves. My number one rule whenever you start a debate, and I hope this is common sense, or at least you look at this and go, duh, Mr. Proctor, I know how to do this. This is cakewalk, which is great, because if it's not, and you're like, oh, I didn't know we were supposed to do this, that's fine too. I just want to make sure we're on the same page. The first step to anything, any process, is to break down the topic. Firstly, define any key terms and phrases, and you need to explain or elaborate is the next step. So, look at the resolution. What don't you understand is what these two steps are looking at. What, phrases, what terms, what concepts are foreign to you. And a lot of times with all three of these, there are going to be phrases or specific policies or things that you might not be aware of, which is totally fine. You're high schoolers. So honestly, if anyone has an excuse not to know about these topics, it's you. So, firstly, let's look at the Lincoln-Douglas topic. In the United States, colleges and universities ought not consider standardized tests in undergraduate admissions decisions. So, that's a whole mouthful right there. First things first, you have to identify a couple of things. So, we'll go into a lot more detail about these things tomorrow or later today when we look at the topic, but the United States is something that we need to consider. Actually, let me change the color here, a little background information. Colleges and universities is something you need to consider. Ought is very big in this debate. You can ask any public forum debaters. They are sick of the word ought. They hate the word ought, and there is a word in their resolution that is very similar to ought that we're going to have to dance around and figure out how to approach. Standardized tests is a big one. And then, last but not least, undergraduate admissions decisions. So, I'm going to do this process with Lincoln-Douglas debate, then I'm going to apply it to the other ones as well. There are 4 or 5 questions here that you have to answer. Don't worry, they're pretty easy. Why? Because they all start with W's. So, who, what, where, and why. These are questions that help you break down topics. They all start with W's. All right, so pretty easy, and we're going to apply these to each and every one of them. Now, you might not be able to answer all of them, or there may be multiple who's, multiple what's, multiple why's. So, in order to figure that out, let's look at this Lincoln Douglas one first to kind of get a better idea. Now, obviously we can just excuse the United States because that's who we're talking about. So there's a who, the United States. More specifically, the United States colleges and universities. Those are key. Understand what a college and a university is by definition. In case in a debate somewhere, someone brings up this one piece of evidence that sounds really good for their side, but if what they're arguing doesn't fall under a college or a university, you can throw that evidence right out the window, tell the judges to discard it, and you've just blown their case open, or at least a hole right there, to abuse for the rest of the debate. Ought is a word that you need to phrase or you need to define. There's two solid definitions of it, and depending on which one you accept or go with, kind of steers the debate from then on out. Standardized tests is huge. Understand what is a standardized test, and most importantly, what isn't a standardized test. And then finally, what is an undergraduate admissions decision? This is going to be huge for the neg to understand and differentiate the different types of paths and ways in which someone can be admitted into a university. And one of those is standardized testing. But there are others out there. And guess what? There are a lot of universities and colleges that have different admission decisions and processes. So it's understanding that there are multiple ones. Now, you don't have to know every single college and every single university's admission decisions and process. No, that's terrible, that's stupid. But it would be smart to know a handful, because you'll find that a lot of colleges and universities fall upon the same 3 to 5 criteria when it comes down to deciding who they let in and don't accept for or at their university. Next, we move on to public forum. A little shorter here. The European Union should join the Belt and Road Initiative. So, looking here, once again, we're going to answer those W's. So, first things first, the big one that probably pops out to everyone is the EU. So what is the EU, or more specifically, who is in and involved with the EU? This big word right here, should. Ugh, the debate shouldn't, no coincidence and pun intended, should focus on this word, but a lot of times it does. A lot of teams that are losing and they don't have much to fall back on will go to this word and try and defend it so that any little weak argument they have suddenly has, and most importantly, impact. And, you know, we should do this because insert poor, helpless people here. And then last but not least, the Belt and Road Initiative. What is that? What does it consist of? Give me and be able to explain to me the gist of what it is. So we are very specific with this public forum resolution, which is great. I love when resolutions are specific because all you need to do, and here's the secret, to win in public forum, or any topic for that matter, is know as much as you possibly can, as you humanly can, about this one little subject right here, the Belt and Road Initiative. And then boom, you're done. You've won it. When they did the housing topic last year, oh, I quizzed my kids inside and out. I gave them a whole history lesson over the course of housing industry within the United States, starting from when it really got its kick in the Great Depression and the Great Deal and the New Deal and all that, and then moving into, you know, Johnson and Reagan and how Nixon screwed it all up, etc., etc. You know, moving into the 80s, the 90s, into the now, you get a better understanding of why there is a problem and what needs to be done about it. So look into those, be aware of those, and then last but not least, we have policy. Now this one's interesting, and it's mostly because of these two words right here, and or. That is going to make and break a lot of debates here. Because suddenly we have a choice. We can choose to include both or exclude one, which prep-wise is very nice for an F, because then, you know, if you feel that direct commercial sales has a lot more benefits and or I guess negative impacts, and we need to work to get rid of just that one, and you feel there's a lot of strength in the foreign military sales for the neg, then you could probably, as an AF, just focus on one or the other. So it gives you that flexibility. And this kind of helps the neg because we're specifically talking about two things: the direct commercial sales and the foreign military sales of arms from the United States. So obviously your plan has to somehow substantially reduce one or the other or both. So looking at that though, real quick. Obviously, United States federal government, we have to know and understand what their powers are and what their powers aren't, what they can and can't do, what they are currently doing and what they should be doing. So, when looking here, should substantially reduce. That is key right there. What does it mean to substantially reduce something? So defining or finding pieces of evidence or history of something being substantially reduced will help you tremendously in this debate. And then, last but certainly not least, we have two topics here that we can look at: the direct commercial sales, as well as foreign military sales of arms from the United States. From the United States. That's key right there. So, there's going to be a lot of negative impacts on this last one when it comes to foreign military sales of arms. Look to see what other countries have done when we've sold them guns. You know, you can look at Yemen, you can look at the Middle East as a prime example, and plenty of information and terrible examples of what happens when we sell, you know, foreign military sales of arms from the United States, etc. So look into both of those. Understand, or at least get a grasp for what they are, the goods and the bads. And this is as simple, and this goes for all three events, answering those W questions, on top of just getting some base research down, so that you have a gist of it, so that when I'm discussing these in greater detail later today or tomorrow, depending on when you're saying this, you have a better idea of what I'm talking about, and you can follow along. And when I tell you, look up this, do this, or hey, use this as an argument, you understand completely. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense, because I understand that insert here is a bad thing because of insert impacts, warrants, etc. So, look at those events, either tonight and or today, and then we'll continue in more detail to look at each specific resolution and apply one key thing to it, and then we'll keep adding. So for instance, like LD, we'll talk about values and what do we do with value clash, and how do we write framework, and how do we set up the debate. Same thing with public forum, and then policy. Obviously stock issues are a big thing, as well as mostly it's going to be looking at direct commercial sales and the foreign military sales to get a better understanding of what those are. All right, well, I'll leave you to this, and then we'll pick back up on the next PowerPoint where I will specifically go through each individual one. So if you're not doing PUF or policy and you're just LD, ignore the other two and just focus on LD, and we'll go from there. Once again, you have any questions, feel free to email me and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Have a great day and or night and or both.